The janitor at Goldman Sachs had been invisible for 12 years. Every morning at 5:30, Marcus wheeled his cart through marble corridors where million-dollar deals were born, where titans of finance strutted in $1,000 suits, completely oblivious to the man who emptied their trash cans and knew their secrets. Marcus had a peculiar habit. While cleaning offices after hours, he'd glance at the documents left carelessly on desks, not to steal or sabotage, but because numbers fascinated him. Growing up in Detroit, he'd been the kid who solved math problems for fun while his friends played video games. But life had other plans. His father's medical bills, his mother's depression, his younger sister's college tuition. Dreams of becoming an actuary got buried under the weight of survival. So there he was, pushing a mop bucket past conference rooms where executives discussed quarterly projections, completely unaware that the quiet man in the gray uniform understood every word. Marcus had taught himself financial modeling from discarded reports. He'd memorized market patterns from overhearing countless phone calls. In his tiny studio apartment, he'd built spreadsheets that predicted stock movements with uncanny accuracy. The turning point came on a rainy Tuesday in March. Marcus was cleaning the office of Rebecca Chen, a senior analyst known for her ruthless ambition and designer handbags. She'd left her computer unlocked, displaying a presentation about Meridian Industries, a mid-sized manufacturing company. The numbers looked wrong to Marcus. Very wrong. Rebecca's analysis projected a 20% growth for Meridian based on their new automotive contracts. But Marcus had been cleaning the offices of 3 different automotive executives for months. He'd overheard their conversations about shifting to electric vehicles, about canceling contracts with traditional manufacturers like Meridian. Rebecca's golden recommendation was about to become a financial disaster for anyone who followed it. Marcus stood there for 10 minutes, mop in hand, staring at the screen. He could walk away, mind his own business, continue being invisible. Or he could do something that would change everything. The moral weight pressed down on him like a physical force. Hundreds of investors would lose their life savings if this recommendation went through. Pension funds, retirement accounts, college funds, all would evaporate. That night, Marcus did something he'd never done before. He created an anonymous email account and sent a detailed analysis to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Not just about Rebecca's flawed projections, but about the pattern he'd noticed over months of invisible observation. How certain analysts seemed to have access to information that contradicted their public recommendations. How some deals were structured to benefit a select few, while leaving ordinary investors holding worthless paper. The investigation that followed was swift and devastating. Rebecca Chen was arrested for securities fraud. 3 senior executives were indicted. The Meridian recommendation was pulled just hours before it would have cost investors over $200 million. But nobody knew who had blown the whistle. Marcus continued his routine, arriving at 5:30, cleaning offices, emptying trash cans. But now, executives noticed him differently. Not because they knew what he'd done, but because something had shifted in the building's energy. People were more careful with their documents. Conversations were more guarded. The culture of casual corruption had been shaken by an invisible force they couldn't identify. 6 months later, Marcus received an unexpected visitor at his apartment. A woman in her 50s, wearing a simple black dress, introduced herself as Margaret Winters. Her husband had been about to invest his entire retirement fund in Meridian Industries based on Rebecca Chen's recommendation. The anonymous tip had saved their future. Margaret had spent months trying to identify the whistleblower. She'd hired a private investigator, followed paper trails, interviewed dozens of people. Finally, through a combination of security footage analysis and elimination, she'd narrowed it down to Marcus. She didn't want to expose him or cause trouble. She just wanted to say thank you. But Margaret had another reason for finding Marcus. She was the founder of a small investment firm that specialized in ethical financial planning. She'd been watching the industry's corruption for years, feeling powerless to change it. Now, she had a proposal. Marcus could continue being invisible, or he could step into the light and help her build something different. The choice wasn't easy. Invisibility had been Marcus's protection, his survival strategy. But it had also been his prison. For 12 years, he'd watched brilliant minds make terrible decisions because they were isolated in their ivory towers, disconnected from the real consequences of their actions. He'd seen how power corrupted when it operated without accountability, how intelligence became dangerous when it lacked wisdom. Marcus took the job, not as a janitor, but as Margaret's partner in building an investment firm that prioritized transparency over profit margins. They started small, managing portfolios for teachers and firefighters and nurses, people who couldn't afford to lose their savings to Wall Street's games. Marcus's unique perspective, his ability to see patterns that others missed, his understanding of both the technical and human sides of finance made him invaluable. The quiet man, who everyone had underestimated, became the voice that changed an industry. Not through grand gestures or public speeches, but through the simple act of refusing to remain silent when silence enabled harm. His story spread through whispered conversations and trading floors and boardrooms, a reminder that true power often comes from the most unexpected places. Years later, when business schools taught case studies about ethical investing and regulatory reform, they rarely mentioned Marcus by name. He preferred it that way. But those who knew understood that sometimes the most profound changes come from people who choose to act not because they seek recognition, but because they cannot bear to remain complicit in a system that hurts others. The janitor had become invisible by choice, not circumstance. And in that invisibility, he'd found a power that no corner office could provide: the ability to see clearly, act decisively, and change the world one quiet decision at a time.